There are stories that live in whispers and fears that shape how people see the unseen world. But what happens when someone claims to have lived inside that darkness and walked away from it? This speech explores a controversial confession from a former practitioner who claims that single women are more frequently targeted than married women. Whether taken as metaphor, belief, or lived experience, this perspective opens a conversation about vulnerability, social structures, and the power dynamics that influence how individuals perceive spiritual or psychological attacks. It challenges us to question not only the claim itself, but also what it reveals about fear, protection, and human connection. There is a powerful idea that has been repeated in many spaces that isolation creates vulnerability, and when someone stands alone, they become an easier target for fear and pressure. But listen carefully, because standing alone does not mean standing weak. It simply means standing in a space where your strength has not yet been witnessed or supported by others. The belief that single women are more exposed often comes from the assumption that there is no one immediately beside them to defend or uplift them. Yet history and reality show us something very different. Some of the strongest individuals have walked their journeys without constant companionship. What appears as isolation to the outside world can actually be a place where deep resilience is built and where self-awareness grows stronger than ever before. Now consider how the mind responds to stories of fear when there is silence around you. When there are fewer voices of reassurance, the echoes of doubt can seem louder, and that is where the illusion of vulnerability begins to take shape. It is not always the absence of people that creates weakness, but the absence of affirming beliefs that remind someone of their worth and power. This is why the narrative has persisted that single women are more easily targeted, because fear finds more room to speak when confidence is not actively reinforced. But here is the truth that must be understood. The moment a person recognizes their inner strength, the entire foundation of that fear begins to collapse. Strength does not arrive from outside validation alone. It rises from within, and it grows every time someone refuses to see themselves as an easy target. So instead of accepting the idea that being alone makes someone weaker, we must transform it into a message of empowerment. Being single can be a season of clarity, growth, and powerful self-discovery. It is a time where identity is not shaped by dependency, but by purpose and inner conviction. When a woman stands firmly in who she is, no narrative of fear can define her or limit her. The real shift happens when she no longer sees herself through the lens of vulnerability, but through the truth of her strength and independence. And when that shift takes place, no force, whether real or imagined, can claim power over her spirit. Stand firm, know your worth, and never allow any story to make you feel less than powerful. There is something deeply reassuring about knowing that you are not facing life alone, that there is someone who stands beside you, someone who listens, supports, and strengthens you when challenges arise. This is why many believe that partnership brings a layer of protection, not just in physical terms, but emotionally and mentally as well. When two people share a bond, they often create a space where fear has less room to grow, because encouragement and understanding are constantly present. It is not about dependence, but about shared strength that multiplies courage, the presence of another voice that reminds you of who you are can silence doubt before it takes root. And in that shared connection, there is a powerful sense of stability that can make even the most intimidating situations feel manageable. But it is important to understand that this strength does not come from the relationship alone. It comes from what both individuals bring into it. A partnership becomes protective when it is built on trust, respect, and genuine care, where both people uplift each other rather than weaken one another. In such a space, confidence grows naturally and fear loses its influence. The idea that married women are less targeted often reflects this sense of unity, where challenges are faced together instead of in isolation. When someone knows that they are supported, their mindset shifts from fear to resilience, and that shift changes how they respond to any form of pressure. It is the emotional security within the connection that creates a barrier against negativity. However, this does not mean that strength only exists within relationships, or that someone without a partner lacks protection. The real message here is about the power of connection itself, whether it comes from a spouse, family, friends, or a strong sense of self. True protection is rooted in confidence, awareness, and the ability to stand firm in any situation. When individuals learn to build strong connections, both with others and within themselves, they create a foundation that cannot easily be shaken. So whether you stand with someone or stand on your own, remember that strength is always within your reach, and it grows every time you choose courage over fear. There are stories that travel through generations, shaping how people think, how they feel, and even how they see themselves in moments of uncertainty. These stories often carry messages about who is strong and who is vulnerable, and over time they begin to feel like unquestionable truth. When people hear again and again that single women are more likely to be targeted, it slowly builds a narrative that can influence perception and behavior. But we must ask ourselves where these ideas come from and why they continue to be repeated. Many of these beliefs are rooted in cultural patterns that have long associated independence with risk and dependence with safety. And when such ideas are left unchallenged, they can quietly shape fear in ways that feel real, even when they are not based on evidence. Fear becomes stronger when it is supported by familiar stories, especially when those stories are shared within communities and reinforced through conversations. The more a person hears that they are at risk, the more their mind begins to search for signs that confirm that belief. This is how fear grows, not from reality itself, but from the repetition of ideas that are rarely questioned. Cultural narratives can sometimes create invisible boundaries, making individuals feel limited or exposed simply because they do not fit a certain mold. But the truth is that these narratives do not define reality. They only reflect collective thinking that can be changed. The moment someone begins to question these patterns, they take the first step toward freedom from unnecessary fear. This is where empowerment begins, in the decision to no longer accept limiting beliefs as truth. Every individual has the ability to rewrite the story they have been told, to replace fear with awareness and confidence. Instead of seeing themselves through a lens shaped by outdated ideas, they can choose to see their own strength and capability. Independence is not a weakness. It is a powerful expression of self-trust and courage. When someone stands firmly in that understanding, they break the cycle of fear not only for themselves, but for others who may still be influenced by those narratives. So rise above the stories that limit you, and remember that your strength is not defined by what you have been told, but by what you choose to believe. As we come to the end of this message, it becomes clear that what we often accept as truth is sometimes only a reflection of fear, perception, and repeated stories. The idea that one group is more vulnerable than another is not a fixed reality, but a belief shaped by isolation, connection, and cultural influence. What truly matters is not whether someone is single or married, but how deeply they understand their own strength and how firmly they stand in it. When confidence replaces fear and awareness replaces doubt, the power of any negative narrative begins to fade. Every woman, regardless of her situation, carries within her the ability to rise above fear and claim her space with courage. Walk forward with strength, trust in your inner power, and let no story ever define your worth or your protection.